Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Viewers, although the topic or the title of the program is Politics Today, we are going to talk about economics today. I'm saying this because everything these days is about economy. Remember, we have been discussing economy for quite a lot of time, especially the days since the government has taken over. And the question was whether the government will go to IMF or not. Then we saw that the government approached IMF. But later on, once again, the Prime Minister went to Saudi Arabia. And amazingly, Pakistan managed to get a wonderful package. I'm calling it wonderful because the Prime Minister of Pakistan has also called it such. Today, Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, spoke to the people of Pakistan. And there, in discussion, he promised that the economy is going to get better very soon. That although Pakistan still will go to IMF, but thanks to the Saudi deal and maybe a couple of other deals that might be in the pipeline, Pakistan will be able to, make sure that the people don't suffer. And that is good news. We are going to talk about this. We are going to also talk about Prime Minister's talk when he was in Riyadh, participating in that investor conference in Riyadh. And we are going to talk about the vision he laid out, especially when the Prime Minister was talking about one window operation in this country, ease of doing business, improving the quality of people's lives, and then building houses as well. We are going to try talking about all these matters. And one question that usually pinches me all the time is, why is it that whenever somebody is talking about some visionary idea, a lot of Pakistanis, especially the intellectuals, keep on making fun of him rather than actually building up that idea? Is it a crime to see dreams in this country? We are going to talk about these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by a new guest in the studio, Faheem Sardar Sahab. He is a political economist. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is an old, he's quite young, but he's an old friend of mine and also a journalist, Essa Naqvi. Thank you very much for being part of the program as well. We are waiting for a third guest. The moment he joins, I'm going to welcome him as well and introduce him. Faheem Sardar Sahab, you must have followed Prime Minister's speech today. What are the major pointers you saw?
I think it was a very clear signal regarding the debt aspect, regarding the economy, regarding the housing aspect, regarding how Pakistan is supposed to be galvanized back to what it can be. And this is not something new. The PM had been saying that before the elections, during the elections, and there had been a slight hiatus of a few days, few weeks actually. But now you can see that
hiatus being the time the government has spent in power.
Yeah, exactly. It's a post-election thing.
Okay.
Call it a post-election syndrome or something.
Why would you call it hiatus?
Because it was in process. It was stuck somewhere. Because that's
you thought so?
I thought so because you see, Pakistan. Now speaking specifically from economics and finance, which which I deal in. Our negotiation power is much more than we think.
Right.
It's just how we present ourselves. It's just how we end up doing things, which is important. And once again, we have proof in front of us that if we stick to our guns and we wait for the right opportunity, you tend to get a slightly better result.
That means we have to wait, right? And then there are pundits on television that keep on telling us that the government has been wasting time for quite some time. And that's why the country is going to get the worst deal possible. So that there's that also. Let me bring in Essa Naqvi. Essa, you must have listened to the Prime Minister as well. What is your take?
Well, I believe that today we saw, he usually is confident, but we saw a relatively more confident Imran Khan. The Prime Minister, the body language, the composure that he had in his speech, and he talked of all the promises that he had made while electioneering, the promises that he had made with the people of Pakistan, the agenda that he gave, he talked openly about that is not going to be pressurized by the opposition, whether they gang up against the government there. So it seems that the government has that breathing space now, which it wanted, it desperately wanted, and we do not have to rush to the IMF in haste. The total demand which Pakistan had was about $10 billion. If you have
No,
like
actually
a promises,
$13 billion.
like if you have $6.2 billion bailout kind of a package which you are getting from a friendly country, so there is a breathing space where
Right.
Pakistan can sit back on it, look at its options, and does not have to rush to a deal which does not favor Pakistan.
So the Prime Minister also mentioned a couple of other countries that might be ready with similar kind of offer. We are spitballing here. Can you identify any?
I'm just coming back after meeting the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Like we had a meeting with him this evening, and he did not exactly mention which countries, but he was also of the view.
He was also teasing, right? Hinting
Yeah,
at
but
it.
like some of the questions I precisely asked him that there is a lot of speculation and suspicion about this deal with Saudi Arabia, and there are affairs which are being talked about, that like what were the conditions at which this thing has been materialized, we are getting this much of amount, and he said that the two parties who have ruled this country in the past 10 years, they have been craving to get such a deal, but they never could get such a deal. Then how come...
But that doesn't answer your question.
Yeah,
that actually builds it up.
Yeah, I asked him, okay, fine, can you tell us that are we going to send our military to Yemen? He said no. I asked him, are we going to play a larger, bigger, or a different role in the alliance, military alliance?
I don't know whether the foreign minister told you about that or not. Yemen war is going to just close now, and that is going to happen before your eyes. So whatever Pakistan is going to do, and the Prime Minister spoke about that as well, it will be some kind of mending, and we are going to talk about that as well. Let me welcome the third guest. I said that the moment he joins, he is so fond of making an entry, and he is here. Khalique, my friend, our colleague, a poet, an award-winning poet and writer, also journalist, analyst actually. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. At this moment, we are commenting on the Prime Minister's speech. I'm sure that you have listened to what he had to say. And do you think that now the darker shadows are over and the country is moving in the right direction?
Thank you, Farrukh. To start with, I mean, it is very difficult to speak to or respond to an anchor like yourself. Who has got more information and knowledge than the analysts, at least, and somebody like me. But I was very carefully listening to Essa, and I think Essa has the advantage of being younger, and being younger makes you more optimistic, and that is something that we need at a personal level, as well as at the community or the national level. But when he was mentioning that our Foreign Minister, Honorable Shah Mahmood Qureshi, was saying that the last two governments were actually craving to cut a deal which is similar to this. I remember that Mr. Qureshi was our Foreign Minister just 7 years ago, I believe. And he was a part of that government, very much a part of that government.
But with due respect, people change, right?
I don't think so. I don't think...
Why not?
No, I don't think people change. I think it's not about individuals. I think it is about the class of people that continues to govern Pakistan. And it is good to be optimistic. I mean, but I would be cautiously optimistic because this is not the first time Pakistan has got, this kind of deal with Saudi Arabia. And we have to understand where Saudi Arabia stands in the Committee of Nations at the moment as we speak. And we also have to understand
Shouldn't you be complimenting Pakistan that if Pakistan managed to exploit a situation where it might be standing anywhere, but it is helping out?
No, I said I'm being cautiously optimistic. I didn't say I'm pessimistic. But let's see. I mean, deferred payments on oil is understandable. Then a loan from Saudi Arabia to the
For
effect of
stabilization.
$3 billion
Yeah.
is understandable. And how would that affect the reforms package that comes with any IMF money? And how will that actually be against our interests? Because either we have a social democracy or a socialist system, which we do not have. If we do not have that, then we have to enter into the capitalist economy.
We
and if
still
we
have
have to enter,
we still have to.
we still have to. That's exactly what I'm
We are
saying.
standing outside.
Then if we have to enter the capitalist economy, then what is wrong with the reforms package, which is not to our interests? I don't get that, because what IMF asks you to do is to tax the rich. You
Yeah.
continue to tax the
But it
salariate,
also,
and you
hang on,
continue to impose
IMF
indirect
also
taxes.
IMF also asks you to withdraw subsidies and hike the prices of
Absolutely.
fuel and electricity.
Absolutely, but there are
And a
certain-
common man like me suffers at that time.
But they don't ask you to withdraw subsidies from where, and also, I mean, you have a lot of, because knowing how World Bank and IMF and all these international financial institutions work, it is actually up to the country to gain benefit from the reforms package that they introduce, because it's actually stringed money. And it is string money because it is a concessional facility.
Okay.
It is not like we take loans from the bilateral loans that we get, or the loans that we have taken from China, for instance, which have a much higher markup than what the international financial institutions offer. So I think it's more of rhetoric, and it is very less understanding of how international financial institutions work.
Right.
So you do not want, because you've got the electables, including Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who will never let you impose tax on income
Is there a
from
reason why
agriculture.
you continuously keep on criticizing one person?
No,
You're
no, I'm
singling
not
him
saying,
out.
No. Actually, he's the best among the lot. No, it's just
He's perhaps the most articulate foreign minister after Zulfikar Bhutto.
really.
I think so.
Well, I think Hina Rabbani Kar was equally articulate.
wasn't.
But anyway,
I
she has become
disagree.
more articulate now. But that's not the point. The point is that you're absolutely right. It is not about Mr. Qureshi, but it is about the way the system works, as I pointed out earlier. The way the system works is that you've got electables which were galvanized to rallied around Mr. Khan to make his government possible. And then there are certain other lobbies and certain other interest groups, Mr. Razak Dawood representing one of them, which will not allow you to tax the rich in Pakistan. So you will continue to go for bailout
I have
packages.
to go back to Faheem Sardar. You want to respond to what was said earlier? He's talking about, rent-seeking class stopping every way, blocking every way.
I mean, we can see the sense in that because it happens in every country.
No, but he's talking about electables, and he incidentally ended up mentioning only one politician.
No, I can take other
My
names also,
favorite
but that's not the
politician.
point. Yeah.
I think to draw my own sense from the whole situation is that, look, there is a to and fro regarding everything in a society.
Okay.
And when we talk about power politics, when we talk about power movements or power shifts, economic revivals, economic downfalls, these things happen. At the end of the day, nobody on earth wants to pay tax.
Okay.
I mean, I'm paying as much tax as maybe somebody in Sweden would, so it doesn't make any sense. But at the end of the day, if somebody can and is able to resist an imposition of tax, that person or group will and can and will resist that imposition.
Okay.
Now,
No, but before you talk about only tax, we have to resolve this matter of going to IMF
Sure.
or getting bilateral loans.
Sure.
At this moment, we have a financial facility from Saudi Arab. Who's going to tell us about the terms that might be involved? And I'm talking strictly in terms of money. I'm not talking about any political terms that might be, or political strings that might be attached. What exactly are the conditions? Can you tell me?
I think I can guess quite fairly what the conditions would be. Saudi Arabia is not interested in making money.
Okay.
From how much money can they make on, let's say, $6 or $12 billion? Not much. They really don't care. They've got $1 trillion lined up in the U.S. stock market. So 6 billion, 12 billion doesn't mean anything.
It's a small amount.
It's less than peanuts. It's less than the bag of peanuts that those peanuts are in. But what I would.
But it is also less than their deficit they had this year. fiscal
Exactly.
deficit,
Yeah.
which was something like $12 billion.
Yeah. And I mean, if we just sort of take 3-4 steps back and we look at other countries also have issues. Saudi Arabia has its issues, Qatar has its issues. And we sometimes forget something which I just want to like jump back towards, that we sometimes forget our negotiation power.
Okay.
And this is somewhere where...
You know, this is something which is really very close to my heart. This argument is great because I think that Pakistan, without knowing, has been committing to changing world order. And Pakistan twice managed to actually pull that off as well.
Yeah. It's a black swan.
End of Cold War and later on,
Sure.
even end of terrorism as well. But Pakistan hardly benefited from it. I understand what you're saying. But at this moment, I first have to resolve the economic aspects of the matter, and then we can talk about anything else. Essa, you want to comment on whatever was said earlier?
Like one thing that I would say here, like carrying on with whatever has been discussed, that let's just not celebrate getting loan from some country or something like, because
I
obviously
escaped a very dark situation.
This isn't what the youth, the supporters of PTI voted for.
Okay.
These were not the promises that they voted for.
Okay.
So
What
the
exactly did
government,
they vote for?
They voted for all the slogans, the popular slogans that PTI had been chanting all along its longest electioneering campaign in the history of this country, which is being run from the 30th of October of 2011 till this government was formed. So this is the largest...
I thought that you are going to talk about 1997. And then I would have asked you, the younger people who voted might not even be born back then. Right? So that is also true. Do you have a vote? Do you vote?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm
that's
trying to
obviously
assess whether it is coming from the heart or not.
No, I'm just telling you that like the people of Pakistan, they voted for something, and if they do not see it happening...
No, but how do you judge a government in 2 months?
Because this
It is
government is
only a
making it difficult
situation-
for itself.
No, but it is a stabilizing
Now,
situation.
there is a difference. Are we judging them too quickly or in haste, or are they asking us to judge them too quickly?
Are they asking?
Why? Yes, they've been
Are
elected. They have been elected for 5 years. Why are they setting these deadlines? Do they, like I've been
100 days.
repeating, they've been talking about their 100 days. They have been talking about their 180 days, 6 months. Who has asked them to set these deadlines?
Okay, but
Have
at
not
least wait for that deadline.
Yes, no, but
Wait for 100 days.
You understand it, I understand it, that these issues cannot be resolved in 6 months' time.
Okay.
So if they are setting this deadline, things would be better. They are giving a false hope, and it's going to come in their face.
But are
This
they not promising hope as well simultaneously, especially the housing plan that they have introduced?
Why give those hopes that have to shatter after 6 months?
Why?
Why give those hopes that have, like,
Why would
tell
you
them
say
that
that?
this is the hard time that you have to go through? Even after 6 months, you will not have these problems resolved. Tell the truth to the people.
Okay.
So this transparency is what anybody in this country would
My
want
dear
to
sir,
see.
in 2 months you don't yourself know the truth. How can you tell it to the people? It is a learning curve. Right now they're learning how to govern, right?
Can I just add one point, just one small point? I'm just compelled to just add to what's being discussed here, that you see, I find it very, very amusing at times that people talk about economic management as if it's a piece of cake. It's not a piece of, it is a very difficult, very time-consuming and almost scientific process. It requires a strong hand, people who've had their fair share of experience. So I mean, it's nice to see people learning what economic management really, it can go both ways.
Yeah. That's an amazing comment. You want to finish that?
I want to finish that. Like, look,
And then I have to go to...
The point is that if honesty is the gauge through which we measure who gets the chance to do the job, then I'm also honest. Shall I be given the chance to run the finance ministry? I'm not capable of doing that.
Okay.
So if you have promised,
Are you
should-
not negating your earlier point? You just asked the government to be honest. And then you said, if they're honest, there's no point.
No. But I'm saying is that the only term that you're talking about, like that this person has made a promise. Now, is he coming prepared to deliver on this?
No, that is true. But even while you were voting, even when I was voting, I couldn't be oblivious to the fact that Imran Khan, if he becomes Prime Minister, it will be for the first time. And if Asad Umar becomes Finance Minister, he will be a Finance Minister for the first time. So I had to cut them some slack, right? I can't expect them to start flying on day one, can I?
No, that I agree with. That I agree with, and this is what I said, that they shouldn't be judged so early, and they're making it difficult for themselves by setting these deadlines. They should take their time.
They cannot take them back.
They should take...
They promised these deadlines before coming into power. At that time, they didn't know how the country is run. Now they know it. But they are realistic, and they're promising big promises as well. That is good news. You want to respond to Essa?
In terms of, I'm just saying that enter capitalism properly then.
Okay.
You see, and that is where you have to actually change the paradigm, how economy is run in Pakistan. And
is
I
it
totally
not your
agree
job,
with...
sir? Is it not your job, actually, the intellectuals of the country, to make a choice?
You see, I mean, we shouldn't confuse...
the entire country is confused because our intellectual doesn't tell us.
I think we shouldn't make it abstract at all. It is the job of the economic managers of the country who remain the same.
Okay.
Half of the team, or most of it, actually comes from Musharraf era. And I tend to agree with Faheem Saab when he says that it can't be done overnight. Absolutely, it can't be done overnight. But this is exactly the same direction that Mr. Dar had taken. And it's just a change of faces in many ways. And I can understand
but
that
Mr. Dar
you have
kept
to go
on
to
promising.
IMF. No, but
he kept on promising a lot of things he couldn't.
If you allow me to finish.
Reform.
If you allow me to finish, they were not a reforms party, they were a status quo party.
But they kept on promising that they are going to reform the tax base.
No, but they tried, but
and
they couldn't.
The tax code.
They tried, but they couldn't. And the present government is not even trying. As we
in 2 months.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't see that happening in the next 1 year also. I would like to be proven wrong. But what Faheem Saab was saying, I mean, I tend to agree with him when he says that it takes much longer than what we think, and it needs a little more stability. But if you're not trading in your region openly, I would want to be informed about any other examples of developing countries who do not trade in their region and still have flourished, one. And two, I would humbly disagree with his comparison with Sweden. None of the rich in Pakistan pay half of what the rich in Sweden pay. Okay. So I don't think that's a fair comparison at all. Okay. Being a student of how countries are taxed, I also agree with him that nobody would want to be taxed. Fair enough, absolutely. But here the whole burden of taxes rests on indirect taxation and regressive taxation. So how do we
No, but Haris Saab, you have to help me understand another very important point. I saw the Prime Minister taking over. He became Prime Minister. There was a cabinet. Then they started announcing the projects they had promised. Housing Authority, umpteen other projects of similar kind. And immediately what happened was there was a lot of skepticism. And remember when the current government, when it was in opposition, promised that after election, they are going to create, 10 million jobs. At that time also, people kept on just poking fun. Why is it?
I tell you why.
If there is a dreamer, why can't we actually support the dreamer?
Absolutely. Then we should actually speak about Faiz Ahmad Faiz rather than Imran Khan. But the thing is that they have to deliver.
You just said that it is about economic...
But you see, you're saying dreamer, but I'm saying we need planners. You see the thing, planners and executors.
A dreamer cannot be a planner.
The thing is that you cut down the public sector development program by 30% and then you announce a housing scheme. Right. So if I am a student, a minor student of a political economy or economics, I would take it with a bit of, with a pinch of salt. That you are cutting down on public sector development program by 30% the next week when you come to power. Which means a cut in spending on education, on health, on basic services, fundamental municipal service projects.
Not health primarily.
No, but what is public sector development
projects?
You see, but so you need infrastructure in Pakistan also. It's not just the green train that is infrastructure.
Half of which lapses by the end of the year. Half of which lapses.
But But Farrukh, that does not mean that you invest less. It is not a matter of diminishing returns in Pakistan. You invest so less that it can't be spent. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that. And so you cut down the PSDP, and then you tell us that you are going to build 50 million houses, or pardon me, 5 million houses. So people would say that you don't have money to spend on running dispensaries and basic health units and schools, or building new basic health units and primary schools or branch primary schools, and then you want to build 5 million houses. Where's the money coming from?
No,
so,
but there's a disconnect, with due respect. You're
No,
talking,
there isn't.
You're talking about...
It's about social safety nets.
You are talking about federal PSDP. You're not talking about ADP. ADP actually covers the provincial nursery building and the hospitals. It is not a federal subject.
You see, that tells you about the direction. I mean, there are many areas in Pakistan which
and
are
you
still
know about
under...
the atmospherics also, sir.
No, but you see, atmospherics, I mean, then how can you have...
It is a private, it is not a public sector funded project, is it?
So where's the private sector funding coming from?
They are
And if you ask
inviting
me to pay 250 rupees to submit my form, which I think, I mean, the good news is that probably they have withdrawn that clause. But the lines of, the queues, people are queuing up in hundreds of thousands across Pakistan for that scheme. And we see that where's the feasibility report for that scheme? Where's the planning that has to go into that scheme? So I think there are questions. So there is reason to be skeptical. But as I said, that it is important for some people to remain skeptical and remain asking questions, so that the government is kept on its toes. I mean, that is what democracy is about.
Skepticism doesn't hurt me, it won't hurt you. The problem lies with cynicism. And I tell you, it is not about you, it is not about me. There are people who sit on television and they usually end up creating a circus. Whenever there's a situation, maybe, Faheem Sahab, I'm gullible. It is a possibility. But, for 5 years when People's Party was in government, I tried to support whatever vision they had. For 5 years, PMLN was in government. I tried to show patience and supported whatever they claimed was. Why is it that hard to support a government which has been in power only for 2 months?
I guess it's because it's something slightly new, something different, something...
Or we are trying to make the country ungovernable.
No, I think...
By being too impatient.
It could be that, but there is a certain element of... We are suffering from self-inflicted Stockholm syndrome. Okay. And we have to snap...
That is a new twist to the plot.
It's the truth. It's the truth. I mean, you talk to people and suddenly you start giving them facts about this beautiful country called Pakistan. I have this very bad habit of collecting facts about Pakistan, economics specifically.
Bad habit?
Well, some say it's a bad habit. I think it's a wonderful habit.
Let me touch of sarcasm.
Let me be sarcastic.
Okay.
So I mean, at the end of the day, what happens is when you start telling people these things. I mean, I have seen that sense of disbelief, but you have to persist with the facts. You have to persist with the positivity, and suddenly
Imran Khan, well, you know him. He has continued for 22 years. And finally, he became the Prime Minister of the country. My issue is that they are good people who might be supporting an agenda. And I just take, a machine gun of disappointment and I start shooting everybody down. Why should I?
Look, being negative might be a good sell. I don't know. I mean...
That's what you did in the last 5 years also.
I mean,
not me, you know me, come on.
It's easier to sell something negatively.
Okay.
If there's a beautiful...
It gives you more ratings?
Of course it does, and it's an easier bet. If you watch the documentary The Power of Nightmares by Adam Curtis, that basically describes how if you can't give solutions, start creating bigger problems. Okay. But what we're saying here is, if with specific reference to economics and with reference to what we've discussed here with my esteemed colleagues, that economics is something that has to be very carefully managed. It's a little bit like electricity. Okay. If you manage it properly, carefully, it has many benefits. But if it is mismanaged, right now, for example, the housing scheme, in my humble opinion, which is also my professional assessment, the numbers are quite big. Yeah. So that makes it a little mind-boggling. I mean,
you're talking about 5 million, or you're talking about estimated investment that will be needed?
Both, because it goes up to more than 2.5 trillion, I think. And if you, what they're
Trillion rupees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
2.5 trillion rupees.
The fact of the matter is you have a GDP of close to 35 trillion. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mega project.
Okay.
It's as big as, let's say, it's like a urban CPEC, so to speak. That's how I look at it. But you see, it was sold too quickly to the market. Speaking strictly in marketing terms, it should have been sold in pieces.
Okay.
So that's
It might actually, take that shape in phases.
Yeah, but they are asking everybody to fill in a form right now.
So does
There
Malik
could have
Riaz.
been, you know-
So does Malik Riaz. It doesn't mean he is going to deliver you your
No,
file.
the total number, I think Faheem Saab is absolutely right on that, because nobody is against housing projects for
Homeless?
for homeless or less privileged. The point is that, how can the number of built houses in Karachi and Lahore together.
Okay.
What is the number? I mean, you see,
It is less than 5 million.
it's less than 5 million. Karachi and Lahore together, which the two cities which house about 22% of Pakistan's total population.
Okay.
And so it's actually mind-boggling, really.
Right.
So it is. I think some rhetoric is fine. Everybody does that to come to
So
power.
the government has just come into power, and it will keep on amending if there is some flaw in the plan. Is it? Yeah. Can
So
we be
we-
that
we-
optimistic
so-
at least?
No, of course they should. I mean, it's not about being optimistic or pessimistic, or it's about being realistic about what is happening and what is not happening.
Yeah, but we in a post-truth society we have different realities.
You see, you have this tendency of philosophizizing it. When I
No, but-
historicize,
Yeah,
you cut me in the middle. Because when I say that we have seen this happening, because there are people who are more than 50 years old in this
Right.
room. So, at least there's one. So, so if you have been a 50-year-old Pakistani, you have seen this happening before. And if you're a minor student of
You
history,
and Faheem Saab both are referring to yourselves in a very unique way. I don't know why.
You invited
50
me
years.
not to. You invited me not to represent, any institution. So
Yeah.
that's the
No,
advantage
but
of being
you're
independent analyst.
Identifying yourself as the only, young man in the room.
Oh, you're younger. You and Isa are much younger. Faheem Saab is also younger than me. I mean, I can see that.
I'm the
Yeah,
eldest. Let's
so
just-
you get my point as well. But regarding other projects and the cost of this Saudi package, what do you think is the cost of it, if it is not economic?
The cost of it, that was my precise question to the foreign minister, and
Yeah.
I asked him
And
what
I'm
do we
still
have
waiting for his answer
What
to
do
you.
we have to do in return? Do we have to send our military somewhere?
Okay.
He said no. I asked him, do we have to play a larger or bigger role in the military alliance? He said no. I said, what would be the future of IP? Is there something that's going to be different in our relationship with Iran? He said no. Iran understands our relationship with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia understands our relationship with Iran. So
wish.
he didn't come clear on anything. But one thing which surprised me, that the moment I came out of this meeting with the foreign minister and I saw the prime minister speaking, and he talked about that Pakistan is
Reconciliation.
going to play a mediator's role. So that was something which was completely missing from what foreign minister was saying. So that was something which
Yeah,
was
but that
surprising
is,
for me. And then
you realize that is an old role. You might be reinventing it. Mia
but for-
Nawaz Sharif, when he was prime minister, went to Tehran and went to Riyadh, and he tried to do exactly the same thing.
But for being
that
a
was different
mediator-
times when things were aggravated. There was no Khashoggi.
for being a mediator, you have to have the consent of the two parties.
There
If
must be
you-
some.
If you do not have that, Pakistan had said that previously as well, and it was. And what was the response? You remember the response?
Yeah.
That nobody was ready to accept
In
mediation. by
Tehran, they were
Pakistan.
not ready. In Riyadh, they were like very forthcoming. I remember those days because I used to report, and I was.
So,
I
and then
mean,
expression of
sitting
interest
in
by
PTV,
Saudi
I have this
Arabia
vantage
that
point.
they are ready to invest in and started building an oil refinery, and the
Who
money
did?
coming in. And that's what the foreign minister told the journalist that he met this evening.
Okay.
And but he escaped the rest of it. So he was clear that there are no such conditions that Pakistanis should be worried about, or they should
Right.
be. So he said all the hullabaloo that the opposition is creating is for some other reasons. When we were in opposition, we used to criticize sometimes, and he was open about it, that sometimes we used to criticize just because we were in opposition. So some of the opposition that is coming in at the moment is because that they are in opposition.
You can address this issue of cost of going to get a Saudi package or deal. But there's another question. Earlier you said that there should be people who are skeptical enough that the government stays on its toes, right? That is precisely your quote. Now, we saw Asif Ali Zardari day before yesterday saying that probably the government is so incompetent they'll have to bring it down. And this is the man during whose government you didn't have a finance minister for more than 1 year. 5 years, they had 5 finance ministers. So how do you respond to the opposition's this statement that the government should be brought down in 2 months?
Well, I think neither Nawaz Sharif should have been ousted the way he was ousted, nor Mr. Khan should be ousted. And when we criticize the PTI government, it doesn't mean that we want them out.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about...
No, I'm saying we,
Zardari,
as people who would want to criticize what is happening and would want to understand better what is happening, because we still see that there is a lack of direction. But as far as Mr. Zardari is concerned, he's in opposition. So he's, I think the opposition for the last few months has been a little more contained than PTI's opposition.
Thanks to him.
Thanks to Mr. Zardari, or thanks to the cases that were opened, filed.
No, but Asif Ali Zardari never sat together with PMLN because he believed he had to punish them. And now,
well, I mean,
now it is his turn to be held accountable, or that kind of process.
You see, the thing is that PMLN has no government in Pakistan. Asif Zardari has a province to run, so he can't really be on the wrong side of the powers that be in Pakistan that easily that Mr. Nawaz Sharif can be.
Those imaginary powers that we often
No, there
talk
are
about.
no imaginary powers that be. There are permanent institutions of the state. If you want me to elaborate, I will, but that is not the subject of this evening's conversation.
Thank you very much.
But the thing is that Mr. Zardari actually gets a few more bank accounts discovered the moment he meets Mr. Sharif. Okay. So you see, there is a certain pattern that one can see. And I think
that doesn't undercut the fact that there are accounts to be found.
Not at all. Absolutely, you're correct.
So there might be corruption.
But the point is that if it has to be like that, then it should be across the board. Okay. That is what we ask for. Okay. For people who have joined the PTI, PTI is not a laundry. That you enter the party and you get all cleaned up.
Yeah.
So I think it should be for everybody, and that is fine. And it's not just the politicians.
I get your point.
It's also everybody.
But I sort of don't disagree with it.
So the opposition is in fact in a democratic system that we have, or the evolving democracy. I'm still optimistic. Opposition has a certain role to play, and they are there to criticize, and they are there to try to bring the government down. Okay. Interestingly, to remind you of a very small fact, is that there were 4 seats which Mr. Khan wanted recounted.
Okay.
Now there are 2 things. One, that PMLN should have accepted that demand, or made a parliamentary commission.
Yeah, but we keep on negotiating the past.
No,
Can
it's
we?
not past. It's just very recent. You see, it's not a
5 years ago.
No, but if you allow, now all the 4 seats actually, even after 2018 elections, are with PMLN.
Mm-hmm. But this is 2018.
No, but
it is not 2014.
What I'm saying is that political parties, when in opposition, are supposed to behave in a certain way. Yeah. When People's Party was not critical enough of the PMLN, all of us sitting in rooms like these would criticize the PPP for being friendly opposition. Okay. Now, you see, we want the opposition to give the government time. Yeah, so I think this is how it works. We shouldn't really be too bothered about that.
No, but
something that the government should bother about is actually delivering. and let the opposition criticize and raise questions.
No, but
and
Haris
push them.
earlier you said that implication might be that I'm representing some institution, but you're not. You said I'm not here to represent any institution. Of course, certainly you're not going to represent any political party either. I want to ask you to comment on the Zardari style of politics, because there used to be a Benazir Bhutto style politics as well, and there's a Bilawal Bhutto Zardari style of politics as well. But Asif Ali Zardari, and you earlier said that at that time he had a province to run, and PMLN doesn't have to do that. Remember what he did during the Senate elections days? That was perhaps the time when he could have forged an alliance against this tide. He did not. Now he is trying to overcompensate, maybe?
I'm not sure whether he's trying to overcompensate. I'm not a fan of Zardari style of politics, but the thing is that I'm not sure whether he's trying to compensate or overcompensate, as it were. I think what he actually, the message he is giving out is that, I'm in trouble, and the cases and, and the kind of the direct, because you see, again, a small piece of news that we missed is that the Karachi package that the federal government announced is to be run by the governor, and that did not sit well with the People's Party, which is running the province.
It never does.
So you
Mia
see,
Nawaz Sharif went to Karachi and he announced a public transport project.
And it did not sit well with
Zardari
them.
Sahab latched.
So you see, so that is one thing, and the other thing is that the cases and the NAB being so active.
Yeah, but
and
we are
selectively
talking.
active.
Hang on, we are talking about the future of 200 plus million people, right? Is it? Is the interest of Asif Ali Zardari that serious that we can actually gamble on that?
It is not about his interest. It is about his
You
being a
said
political
that he is
leader.
saying that I'm in trouble.
No, when he says I'm in trouble, what I mean to say is that that we are in trouble, which is that the party that Zardari runs is in trouble, and they are not being allowed the space to actually govern the province that they are supposed to govern.
Right. You realize that you can jump in anytime you want.
I was waiting. We're just listening to
Yeah, but this is a program. The first session is like introduction, and then you can jump in whenever you want to.
I just want to say one thing here.
Yeah. Accountability, include accountability as well, because the Prime Minister spoke again that there's not going to be any NRO.
Fair enough. I'm really happy to see on this channel and on many channels that people are talking about economics.
Yeah.
That they're talking about effective economics, not just something which is one-handed or two-handed or whatever. But it's important for us to continue this discussion and make it part of our life, because the future of 220 million people resides on economic strength. Pakistan recently entered the $1 trillion club based on purchasing power parity. We don't even talk about that. Pakistan's GDP is growing because of the private sector, because of a resilient nation. We don't talk about that. We have a few problems. We can resolve them. Not a big issue. If you take these $12 billion and you divide them by our GDP, so the number is ridiculous.
Okay.
It's literally, the percentage is ridiculous, and we've got such a huge problem with these twin deficits. I'm just happy to know and hear that we're talking about economics. Politics will always be part of our lives.
But we are talking about political economy first.
Exactly. But all I'm trying to say is revisiting economics gives new life to a debate.
Yeah, but this is an English channel. It is an island or an oasis. It is not like the mainstream Urdu channels where you have those conspiracy theories being spun all the time. So remember that sobering thought as well. Essa, you can also contribute to whatever was said. Especially, I want to hear you out about NRO.
What I believe is that whatever is happening right now is a bit different to the spirit of the inaugural speech of Imran Khan, the victory speech that he made, which gave a lot of hope.
Which one? The first one, the second one, the third one?
The first one.
There were three.
The first one. I'm talking about the first one, which was well prepared, which was which talked about that there wouldn't be a political vendetta and it would be a new beginning, and it talked about, then gave a lot of hope that it's going to be a new beginning. We are going to start afresh. We are not going to do exactly or copy what has been happening in the past.
But today the Prime Minister says these cases were not made by or registered by his government. He's only, it is not the government which is pursuing these cases, it is NAB.
So this is precisely the problem. The government ministers and the people who are considered in the second tier or third tier leadership of the PTI should not represent NAB, should not own the actions of NAB or try to say that all this is justified. NAB has a spokesperson which should talk about the cases.
Which minister are you talking about?
Some of the ministers I would mention, even the information minister has talked about.
Information minister is not merely the government's minister, remember.
No, but
he's representing the entire state.
He is representing the state, but when the questions are pointedly asked and they are asked on purpose, the way NAB's actions, what I mean to say is that the way NAB's actions are tried to be justified by someone sitting in the government, it appears as if there is a patronage of the government, or government is tapping on the back of an institution to take action against certain individuals, and that's why it's happening.
Look, I have a problem. Issa, and you have to realize what is happening. I totally get what you're saying, and I respect that as well. The reason why I pointed out that there were 3 victory speeches must have shown you the evolution of thought as well. Eventually, it went into a certain direction, right? Whatever it is, the Prime Minister is still sticking to his promises, and these promises are not new, they were campaign promises, mind you. Thanks. And regarding accountability, I tell you, I was a kid when I started hearing about corruption. And I'm so tired because corruption doesn't help me, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help him. We all are victims. But somehow we have to make do with whatever we have got. If somebody is doing something, I would let it play out. And I would want the country to stabilize. Whatever it is, I just want to get rid of this word corruption.
No, in the meantime, I wouldn't, like, if even such thing is happening, I wouldn't let anybody gang up against the government because of some of the statements which shouldn't be given.
So very quickly, if you want to add something, because I'm being told that we have to actually conclude the program.
I think you should have a separate program on what corruption is and how corruption works and how it actually
epistemology of corruption, right?
No, not the epistemology of corruption, but how corruption actually functions.
Right.
And I think that's...
it does. It affects your life and mine.
No, but it does, yes, absolutely. But it actually benefits a lot of people.
I'll take your recommendation under advisement. I'm told that we have to conclude the program. Khalique sir, thank you very much for your time. Essa Naqvi, thank you very much for your time as well. Faheem Sardar sir, thank you very much for being here. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. Of course, this discussion has to continue. The government has just arrived. It has been only 2 months. But the Prime Minister today spoke and promised a lot in today's speech. Let us hope in coming days he can fulfill the promises, especially that affect the lives of the common man on the street positively. Because if that happens, democracy in this country will be strengthened. Let us hope in coming days we see better days as well. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.
You are in a weak position and you can take guidance, advice from everywhere it is coming. So this is what is happening right now. If I'm stressful, if I'm worried, if I am having some kind of emotional distress or discomfort, I would simply go to internet and I look for different reasons. You know, I may encounter something that is more negative for me.
Exactly.
That
and it would actually add to the stress.
Exactly, and that may
Wouldn't
push
be
me.
helpful.
you know,
Yeah.
more towards that.
So how about like the connection between stress and anxiety or panic attacks
Exactly.
and things like that? How do we work around those?
You know, stress, a certain level of stress is present every time. I've already mentioned that. But, you know, intensity, if intensity is coming into it, it might convert itself into anxiety and more of generalized nature. You don't even know what for you are worried. Initially you knew, but later on you don't know. You are becoming worried about everything. So everything is, you know, so very overwhelming that it is producing some negative effects on your personality, on your functioning. People are also noticing that. And then later on, it converts into panic attacks. There is a sequel that follows. Anxiety and then panic attacks. If my stress is not managed, it will convert itself into anxiety, and then if I do not manage even then it becomes panic, because then it collects itself, then it is, you know,
gathers
intensified
altogether
and gathers, and it is intensifying itself, and then there needs a situation where it has to come out.
Right.
So it converts itself into panic attacks. And there is another dimension, like if we are, you know, perceiving a situation in
as
a
a
hopeless manner, you know, I feel I'm very hopeless, I cannot cope up with that, I don't have any help provided, and future will be dark for me. So it converts itself into depression. And depression, then isolation, and then suicidal tendencies. So it has different pathways, because,
Right.
you know, it is not general, stress is general term, but it is manifested, it is expressed in a very unique way for every person.
That's absolutely true. This is a very, very interesting subject, Dr. Uzma. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but there's lots and lots to talk about. We will definitely talk about more issues as well.
Sure,
and
sure.
The
I'll be happy.
topic of depression is something definitely that would warrant a full program towards it. So thank you very much, Dr. Uzma Masroor, our clinical psychologist. She's here today, and she is talking about stress, its causes, symptoms, management. Please take away what you can from her, the tips that she has given, and you can change your lifestyle to adapt to things. And basically, it's all about perceptions. So right now, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is medical breakthroughs. Let me just have one look. Okay. अच्छा ठीक है. First ये intro है और उसके बाद फिर ये पढ़ना है, हाँ? Okay. Okay, let me just read this. Okay. और फिर उसके बाद प्रोग्राम ख़त्म ना? ये हमने जॉनसन एंड जॉनसन का है ना? पानी मंगा लो जी, पानी मंगवा दें इनको, गेस्ट को. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, and on to our medical breakthrough segment. We usually have the news that we like to share with you, is what's going on in research around the world as well. Talking about diabetes, that we were, the theme that is under discussion today. Well, patient testing has started on a stem cell treatment that actually could lead to a cure for type 1 diabetes. And it's first of a kind treatment, and it's working well in patients as it has in animals, and that's the testing that's been taking place. And if this breakthrough, occurs, it would eliminate the need for regular insulin injections and also regular blood sugar testing. This is and in this therapy, embryonic stem cells, if we explain to you a bit about what it is, they are prompted to turn into insulin-producing cells. These are placed in a small capsule that is implanted under a patient's skin. Now, this capsule protects the cells from the immune system, which would otherwise attack them. And in people with type 1 diabetes, the immune system destroys the insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas. A number of approaches are being used in an effort to find a cure for diabetes, but this is the first to be tested in patients. According to ViaCyte Biotechnology Company, it has teamed with Johnson & Johnson to speed development of the therapy. So that is the breakthrough that we have, the news that we have to share with you. Of course, that would be great news for people who are suffering from type 1 diabetes, and it would make a big change to their lives. Let's hope it goes through and it is successful, and then it's something that's readily available for people who are suffering from it. Now, with that, that brings us to the end of our program today. We hope you have enjoyed watching the program as much as we have enjoyed presenting it. And do keep in touch with us on our Facebook page, Health is Wealth. We are getting your comments there. We're getting your questions there. We have included them in today's program. We will inform you as to the next topic that we're going to take under discussion, so you can send us more questions there as well. So stay healthy, happy, and safe. Bye-bye until next time. क्या चाहिए आपको? 1 बजे ना, I have to pick my. बस we just have to 15 more minutes. 15 more minutes, then you are free. I have to run that. मैं वो पहन लेती हूँ, हाँ. लेकिन इनके तो कपड़े वही हैं. अच्छा.
आज तो मैं कोई कपड़े निकाल भी नहीं सकी इतनी.
अच्छा, ठीक है. Sorry जी.
नहीं, मैंने कब
जी. नहीं ड्रेस नहीं चेंज करना. बस वो एक मेरी जैकेट पड़ी है उधर, वो मुझे दे दें, वही पहन लेती हूँ ऊपर ही. जी इसके पास है, इस बैग के पास. थैंक यू. जी बिल्कुल, थैंक यू. यही दे दें. जी बिल्कुल, 15 मिनट जितने पहले लगे थे. थैंक यू वेरी मच मंसूर. थैंक यू. जी वो वेट नहीं कर सकते, ये तो सही बात है. एक्चुअली हमने भी सोचा कि थोड़ा सा एफिशिएंसी दिखाते हैं, और आप यहाँ आई हैं तो आपको बार बार वो ना करें, तो वी कैन गेट यू टू डू 2 सेगमेंट्स. तो हम थोड़े से ग्रीडी हो रहे थे. ये प्रोग्राम तो ये वाला तो ख़त्म हो गया. अब हम नेक्स्ट प्रोग्राम का वो कर रहे हैं सेगमेंट. बस अब यही कर रहे हैं, अभी कर रहे हैं ना. लेकिन जो व्यूअर तेज होगा ना, उसको तो समझ आ जाएगी कि नीचे तो वही है सब कुछ.
आजकल बड़े तेज व्यूअर्स
है ना. मुझे इतने वो आते हैं मैसेजेस कि आपने वही वाला पहन लिया जो उस दिन पहना था. Well, you know, if I owned a mall, then I would have different outfits for every episode, but I don't. So, अच्छा, okay. Where is the? Hang on. Yes, I'm coming there. जी social anxiety disorder. उस पे बात करेंगे. I think many people have this, you know. It's something that just slips unidentified. Gee.
Especially it is more prominent in student life because they have to present very regularly now. हमारे ज़माने में तो कुछ बच-बचा हो जाता था, but now everyone has to present.
Yeah. रविश बताएं कि बाल तो नहीं खराब हो गए? सही है.
चलें जी, अब कर लें स्टार्ट.
Okay. हाँ, ये ज़्यादा अच्छा लग रहा था. यही पहन लेती मेन प्रोग्राम में. सही है. बाल डिफरेंट हो गए. फिर क्या होगा? Okay. Okay, this is a different. तो इनको introduce भी ऐसे ही करना है ना. Okay, just a minute. नहीं. Okay, ठीक है. There's a. Okay, and welcome to. Okay. Say it. ठीक है? Okay. जी जी दे दें प्लीज. Okay, and welcome to our next segment, which is the emotional well-being segment, something that people are responding to very well, and they want to know more about different aspects of emotional well-being. We are going to talk today about social anxiety disorder, which is, something that is quite common. Many people don't even realize that they have it. To talk about today's problem, we have Dr. Uzma Masroor, clinical psychologist. Thank you, Dr. Uzma, for joining us in the studios today. And right now we're going to show you a report which is going to describe what exactly social anxiety disorder is. Right, so you've seen that report. That should have given you some insight as to what social anxiety disorder is. The problem is that in today's sort of world, when you see some sort of a disorder, you immediately sort of identify and think, oh God, I can recognize those symptoms. How common is social anxiety disorder nowadays?
I would say it is very common. It is very common because this is basically inability and difficulty for a person to act, to respond, and to perform in social situations. So it is very common. You may have seen many people who do not perform up to the mark or as per their personality, as per their knowledge and background in front of others. So it is just like a terror. It is not intense as panic attack is, but it is just kind of attack of terror.
Is it a phobia?
Yes, it is a phobia. And phobia, I would say specific type of phobia in which person is irrationally afraid of some situation that is kind of social situation. So it is also phobia. Phobia is relatively more intense. It has more I would say consequences compared to social anxiety. While social anxiety, it is prevalent among normal people as well. They feel it difficult to deal with the general social situations. Not that intense, but in fact it is there. It is very prevalent. It is very common, and it has very adverse effects sometimes.
So when we're talking about social anxiety disorder, does this necessarily mean a gathering where there are lots of people, or can it just be contained to just going somewhere where you have to interact socially with even just one person?
The situation in which there are a lot of people and the person he has this terror attack among many people, it is different type of phobia, in which going into the gatherings, having a lot of people around, maybe confined places, it is all related. But that is some other form of phobia. Social anxiety is something that is related to interaction, performance. It could be with one person, it could be into a group of people. And this person, when it gets comfortable with one or two people in certain situation, then he's better, able to cope with that. But definitely in our normal life, we have to deal with many people. While you are traveling in public transport, you have to see many different people daily. And at your workplace, at your if you are a student, then at your institution, you may have to deal with a lot of people at the same time. So it is not possible to get that comfortable level. Right. But at home, they are comfortable. If somebody visits them, they are relatively better because they have some support from surroundings.
And they're comfortable.
They are comfortable because they're in certain protected and known environment at home. And if somebody visits, they may not be that anxious because it is usually at strange places, unannounced.
How much is it sort of to do with fear of the unknown?
Fear of unknown is something else. That is generalized fear of unknown. You are constantly worried about something might happen, this might go wrong, that might go wrong, how would I do that, how would I do that? You know, it is something else. That is fear of unknown is something else. It is very generalized fear. You are not even aware of what is happening to you, because very simple thing that you can easily say it may not be difficult for you, but still there is some part of your self, maybe it is in your brain or in your mind, that is constantly knocking at you, or never satisfied.
Is there a link between social anxiety disorder and low self-esteem?
Definitely, yes. There are links. General brought up the childhood experiences, the way they have been, they have been, I would say, taught in certain situations, and relationships. Maybe something has gone wrong with their relationships. Maybe traumatized. They are traumatized in. Maybe in their home affairs, or maybe life experiences had certain repercussions for them. So they might develop not that healthy self-esteem, and it is very natural in childhood. In childhood, many cases, we have seen many cases, and usually it is very frequent not to have good self-esteem, because I think social setup also matters a lot, because parents are not much aware of this thing, how to raise your children, keeping their self-esteem preserved. So there are many reasons, there are many chances, very frequently. But later on, unfortunately, the person, he has encountered certain situations in which he could not perform up to the mark. Secondly, he might have people around him who are more critique in nature, who are more negative in nature, who are discouraging. And
that is
many
a very
factors.
important point,
Very
Dr.
important.
Osman, because it does make a huge difference as to the sort of reaction you're getting from people around you. If you say something and you're being laughed at, if you say something and you're being criticized, then that can damage a person's self-esteem. What we see usually in friends is that, friends can what they may perceive as being just harmless jokes or harmless banter may actually be damaging somebody. So if you sort of perceive that you have a friend or somebody who is feeling this way, or they're getting offended, criticism, constructive criticism is a good thing, but then we have to know where to draw the line to not be
because criticism
somebody.
is also important. You're right in this sense, and we definitely need negative attitudes from our environment as well, because then we come up with some challenge from inside. Sometimes negative situations make ourselves more strong to deal in future. But when it is persistent, again, excessive everything is bad. If something is persistently bothering, negative, it is not promoting any kind of, it is not encouraging at all. Definitely, it will again, cause more damage to self-esteem. And then, of course, social anxiety would be, I think, more intense.
Right. Okay, Dr. Isma, thinking about the way lifestyles have changed over the years and the decades, we have now social media, which is a bit of a paradox, because it's called social media, but actually a person is really not physically interacting with anyone. Everything's happening in cyber world. Now, people who are suffering from social anxiety, are they using social media as a wall, very comfortable wall where they can hide behind then, because they're not physically having to interact with anyone, they have a completely different personality online, and then if you happen to meet them somewhere, they may be socially awkward, and you think that, this is not the person that I was talking to or whatever. How much of a factor is that?
I agree with you. Definitely, it also contributes to that as well. But it may not be the exact cause. Yes, it can give some kind of protection to the person who doesn't want to go and interact. Definitely, it is a good place to hide. Yet they can have appreciations from everyone. They can have that self-fulfillment inside, as if they are throwing something on social media and everybody is like, wow, beautiful and all that. So it artificially, heals his problem. But in fact, it is, pushing him more towards
seclusion.
More exactly. And, they have this fear of, exactly, you're right, not coming up front and then interacting with people. But I think not extensively, I would say, catered environment is required. It is just normal environment that can, bring them out of it.
Okay.
Simple encouragement from home, simple, rescheduling of their activities could bring them outside of that.
Okay.
Parents should keep checking whether their child has constantly, kept himself inside the room, or they are more into that thing. So, it has also, a lot of other negative effects also.
Of course.
And one of them is basically, aggravating that anxiety,
Right.
social anxiety. But if coming towards the causes, past experiences, personality itself, interaction, mode of interactions from environment, attachment styles from parents, and then relationships between the sibling, everything contributes towards that. And talking about social anxiety, more of that is related to their experience outside the world.
Okay.
Because for some reasons, if they could not get the required response they were supposed to, for some reasons, if they were unable to get that, it might, cause that anxiety into them.
So, Dr. Usma, let's say there is a person or somebody that you know that is suffering from this disorder. It's very hard to sort of, convince them, because to them, going outside or meeting new people or going into strange environments is terrifying. So how do you work with them? How do you get them to change?
Exactly. First thing is insight. We have to provide the insight to that person that there is something wrong and he needs to work on it. He should admit that, and he would be agreed to anything we are proposing him. So first thing is insight. Sometimes people don't have even insight. If they are, chronic in social anxiety, they might get it justified. They might present with certain reasons they are not doing it. But in fact, first thing is to make them identify, to make them accept that thing, number one. And secondly, we cannot, push them out of it in a comfortable manner, exposure, intense exposure at once. It's kind of flooding, that is dangerous. We can bring him out, slowly and gradually with the, bringing less intense situations first. We can, slowly schedule their activities in a manner that they have to deal or interact with one person and then two person and then three persons. Initially, these situations are completely, I would say, structured, purposefully structured, and then slowly and gradually the, generalization is done. Like they are taken into some more challenging situation where they are completely protected. And slowly every type of psychological problems is handled that way. This is the same sequence we follow. The first thing is to provide the insight, and then coming up with those strategies which are relatively easier for him to handle, easy to understand and easy to work with. And then slowly and gradually we can bring that person out of it. In this sense, two types of dimensions are taken into consideration. Number one is the thinking pattern, the mode of thinking, the cognitive side of a person, making him understand, asking him to explore some other options as well, and asking what ultimately could happen in this sense. So providing him some thought change strategies is important, and secondly some behavioral measures, because if you simply talk about and simply convince someone or going with his fear or his problem, and then you are not taking care of the behavioral side of it. Behavioral side mean bringing that person out of it by small tasks, some homework assignments, or some in-session tasks also. So this is how we bring him out.
Right.
So very, this is,
It'll be done
I would
gradually.
say this gradually. I think this disorder is, the disorder I've seen very frequently in my practice.
Right.
People, they have some other problems. In addition to that, they have this anxiety also.
I see.
So it is very common.
Right. Dr. Usma, thank you so much for giving us all that insight into this disorder. And as Dr. Usma told us, social anxiety disorder is actually something that she comes into contact with frequently. A person may not realize, but it's something that is there. So if you know somebody or yourself even, you feel that you're having these symptoms or going outside, meeting other people, being in a certain social social situation makes you anxious, there are things that you can do. She's explained them all, and it's good to be, you know, in control of what is happening to you, so that you can actually control things your way. And we'll be going on to our next segment, which is the medical breakthrough. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Usma.
It was a nice meeting. I'll keep
task for them and they're going to beat them again. But when you saw the game and how the players were performing, how the players were giving it their all, I think PSG have a fantastic
on the computers to type them up and then just print them
Very
out.
nice. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what we're doing today is that I'll make Essa to end up the show for me. We'll do that, but obviously we need to conclude the show. Now the thing is that whatever is good over there does not really mean will be good for us. I mean, students over here, obviously they're a bit spoiled because of the fact that mothers, they do not have that much time. They have to do whatever they feel like. They go out shopping, and you know the lawn fever is on. So they are pretty much over here, the women over here in Pakistan, they love shopping. They're doing anything, and at the same time, they wouldn't really be interested in letting their you know, sorry for that, sorry for messing it up. So what they'll do is they won't really focus on their children because of the fact that they're too busy doing other stuff. But parents over there in the United States or elsewhere, they're really focused on their children because of the fact that they are the sole, you know, they have to do whatever they're supposed to do, because if they won't do it, nobody else will do it for them. So Essa, it's on to you. Say whatever, look into the camera and say bye-bye, thank you for watching and all of that. All right, go ahead.
Bye-bye, thank you for watching.
That's it. Improvise a little.
Do good at school.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying tuned. Look after yourselves. Don't forget to write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, which is with the name of World This Morning without a G. And on Facebook, obviously, it's with the name of World This Morning. As a rerun at 11:05. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye. Good morning. Thank you very much. You did it.
Player. Cast your mind back to the test match in 1999 against India and Madras. He scored 141 runs under severe pressure on a ball on a pitch that was turning square.
And
then in
under
2009,
under the able guidance of Javed Miandad.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Zadi Saab, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.